Hello everybody, welcome to another of Emma's Snippets. As promised, I thought I'd do you a quick video on the art of listening. Now you might have seen my video last week on the illusion of communication, or communication illusion, which I love and fascinated about. And I had some quite strong language in there about like us being terrible at this, terrible at that. But just please remember, with these videos, they are my opinion and I get very excited when I'm talking and I tend to be dramatic and exaggerate. I'm not saying that you're crap at everything at all, but please bear in mind you're probably not as good as you think you are. Okay, so the art of listening. One of the things we're very terrible at, and there's a strong language again, but sod it, I'm going with it. One of the things we're all terrible at, coaches included, and we work on it all the time, is when someone's talking to us, we're so busy formulating ideas, making assumptions, and getting ready to respond, and we do it so quickly, couple of seconds, if that when you're having a two-way conversation, generally what happens is they start talking, you hear what they're saying, and you've already answered them in your head. It's like, well, the answer is this, or this is what they want to hear if you're a people pleaser, or this is what I'm going to reply if it's got your backup, or whatever it is. You have already made assumption on where they're going with their communication, their conversation, their statement, and you have formulated a response. So what we tend to do is we tend to listen to respond. And that is where we miss so much information. So if you consider that you're talking to someone, they start saying something, you've assumed this is where they're going, but actually this is where they're going, and here you've cut off. So they're doing that, you're doing that, here you've cut off, you're this far apart. And it could be a really simplistic conversation on a subject that's not really important, like where do you want to go for lunch, what do you want to eat, how was your weekend? Or it could be something really important where you're making life-changing decisions, or where you're considering something that really impacts you and the other person just needs that space to get out of their system what they're thinking, hear it out loud and make a decision. So the art of listening, what you need to try and do, and this takes a lot of practice, is try and quieten your mind and really focus on what they're saying and make the decision not to think about it until they finish talking. So blah, 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 blah. Already you're like, well, the answer's clearly this, right? And if you're polite, you won't interrupt them, but most of us do. Don't interrupt them for a start. Let them keep going. And an extra bonus trick, if someone's talking to you and then they do this, they've not finished, right? You know when someone's finished because they come back and they go. And it's a really hard thing to judge, and trust me, it's part of my living. It's so frustrating when I accidentally talk over a client. We all do it. It takes a lot of practice, but you watch them speak. You wait for any body language like this to stop. You wait for them to come back to you. And at that point, you consider what's been said and you formulate your response. Now, there's got two major bonuses to that, two major advantages. First of all, is that you've heard all of it, and so your response is going to be more in line with what it is they're talking to you about, right? So you've heard all of it. The second is that if you have a strong emotional response to whatever they're saying, you've given yourself that little bit of space so that the primary response can calm down, because usually primary response is quite strong, but it's fleeting. Secondary emotions are other ones. We can talk about that on another day, but primary emotions, anger, happiness, excitement, those sort of things, they're quite full on, but they're also fleeting. So if they're saying something to you that triggers something, positive or negative, in waiting for them to finish, you've just given yourself those microseconds to just let that filter go, and then your mind can be clearer and you can think with more clarity. And I know I said two, but a third one is people never feel listened to. Most people feel like they're either fighting for space to be heard, or they can't be bothered to fight for the space to be heard, and so they don't barely try. If you can do that, if you can give someone your full attention and clearly not be thinking about how to respond, but just be listening to what they've said, people really pick up on it. And if you're in a leadership position, this is how you straight up the ladder, because as soon as people start feeling heard, they feel valued, and when people feel valued, that's when they do their clever thinking, and then that's when your team starts churning out stuff that's mega effective, mega creative, mega clever, and you stay ahead of the curve. So it's such a simple thing, but well worth practicing. Now, the main fear I get from people when I tell them to try this is they say, I'm going to look really slow-witted. If I wait for them to finish talking and I go, have you thought of this? I'm going to look slow-witted. No, you won't. because first of all, it happens quicker than you think. So it might take you a couple of microseconds, nanoseconds to think of your response, but it will come like that, and it will be intuitive because you've got all of the information. It happens quicker than you think. You won't look slow. Second of all, let's just play devil's advocate and say you do look a little bit slow. That person is going to feel so valued for being heard, they will graciously give you that space because that's what you've just afforded them. So you win, 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 win. So there we are. There is an Emma Snippets little life hack on how to listen effectively. And if you do this with your partner, if you do this with your team, if you do this with your boss, it's bloody amazing. Just as a quick insight, when I was in corporate and I was trying to negotiate rent breaks for people during COVID, I had one guy, very, very, very angry man, and I did this. I let him just talk, and you know what? I didn't have to negotiate with him because he spoke himself all the way around. So in the end, he saw that we were both coming from the same page. We were trying to work out something between us, and that was without me saying a word, but I just gave him my full attention. It can get you out of all sorts of heat, guys. So give it a go. Let me know what you think. And yeah, this has gone longer than I expected. So that's the end of today's Emma Snippets. Bye, kids.